Hi, everyone. So it's Michael OGrinz.
That's correct.
He missed a big O. And the whole family is consisting of Monica.
And my daughters, Megan and Alexis.
And we're happy everyone's here. And what you and I are going to do most of the discussion, maybe we'll let David chime in because he's a big maker, big time. So what you have gotten involved in with this friend of yours who's really the head person in organizing this. What's his name now?
Mark Mathias.
Okay.
Yes. So Mark founded the Westport Maker Faire. We used to be the Mini Maker Faire. We're kind of just now the Westport Maker Faire. And this year will be our 7th fair. So we started in 2012. I think we got... Mark's inspiration was visiting the New York Maker Faire.
And David over there, that good-looking guy over there, he's been to most of them. The New York fairs, right?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them. So he's into this big time. He used to tell me about it, but he never really invited me. But he went anyhow.
You're invited, Dolly, but you can't manage it. That's
no, it's a lot for me since I've...
Well, so the New York one is huge, and it's a lot of walking, and actually Monica doesn't really like the big crowds. It's tough because it's packed. The Westport one, the thing I will say is that we're a lot more like a local event. And it's, again, just down on Jessup Green, and it's much smaller. So, smaller. We're like 12,000 people compared to probably the 30,000 people that they might get in a day at the New York Fair. But it's a little bit more manageable.
How many do they get? 30,000?
I think they probably get 30,000 or more, probably. But that's their marquee event, that and the one that they have in San Diego. So we're one day. We're not 2 days. It's a little bit difficult to manage multiple days.
It's a lot of organization from what you started to tell me.
So it started completely grassroots. Mark basically, so I knew Mark from work and a couple other organizations and things we're involved with. And he had been to the New York Fair and thought, this is really great. I want to bring this to Connecticut. He reached out to the Westport Library and the Rotary that he's a member of, and they decided to help sponsor it. And so he started pulling in, friends and acquaintances, sort of like a stone soup approach. And the first year, I think Mark said maybe we thought we'd get a few hundred people showing up. I think we got 2,500 people, and it's been growing ever since. I think last year probably we got 8,000. I think we're expecting maybe 12,000 this year. So we're the largest single-day event in the state that focuses on innovation.
Oh, there's the word innovation. So maker equals innovation. But you used another word. So when I grew up in my house, everybody were artisans in my family, or artists. Fine artists, architects, Jason being an artisan. My sister was a major fabric artist in this country. So that's the word, was craftsman, right? But this is a new connotation. These are makers.
Well, I think craftsman, handyman, you think someone hands-on, Yankee ingenuity. There were all these I think there are a lot of different terms that imply, I don't think maker is anything new that people just suddenly started, the word was coined. So the person who started in 2005, Make Magazine came out.
Wow.
The editor-in-chief was this guy, Dale Doherty. And he was formerly with O'Reilly. They're a big publisher of computer books. But so they started this Make Magazine in the spirit of, if you ever remember reading growing up, but even or seeing archived issues of Popular Science and Popular Mechanics, they used to tell you it wasn't just like reviews of the latest TV or some science. They would say, this month's Popular Mechanics, how to build your own hydrofoil, or building your own shed, or like complicated things.
Your own nuclear reactor.
Yeah, exactly. So when Make Magazine started in 2005. This guy Dale was looking around for a phrase. He didn't quite understand what to call the readership, I guess. He didn't want to say these are our customers or our readers, and he kind of coined the term. He was the person who coined the term maker. And so they had their first Maker Faire a year later. I think, again, that may be 20 or 30,000 people showed up. It was in California, and again, that they kind of lean very heavy towards technology and innovation. But and they've successfully franchised that around the world. But to your original point, like my mom was in women's club. She was a working mom, but she was baking. She was doing flower arrangements. She was doing candle making. She was doing that stuff you do with like the pieces of glass with like the lead around the side and things like that.
Right.
And my dad, I never thought, maker. But this is, she had all these hobbies, right? People had hobbies, and they created things and they shared them. And I got to do some of that stuff. I was probably the only boy who was, doing flower arrangements and entering them in the farm and horse show, but it was just something that was fun. And my dad, meanwhile, he was an animal scientist. Now my parents are both retired, but he also built our house. And so so I watched him growing up. If he wanted something done around the house, he would just do it. If he wanted a shed, he would build the shed.
Most of the people that I met in Easton, that some of them are dying off now, but that's just how they lived.
Right.
They were farmers, but some of them weren't farmers. They had to fix their roof. They did it.
Yeah.
Whatever they had to do, they did it. They didn't hire in.
Yeah,
and it's changed a lot. Though.
I grew up in northwestern New Jersey, but I've come to really identify the way my parents were as sort of that New England work ethic.
So
or
now
that
you
Yankee
look back
ingenuity.
at it, right?
Yeah, now I look back and I think the reason that I have the confidence to just try something new or build something is because both of my parents, that was just, I learned from just watching them, if not doing it, just saying, oh, I see when they want to do something, they just go ahead and they do it. So if I want to do something, I'll just figure it out. And the thing that I always look back and think was the most important lesson I got from my dad was if there was nothing you could try to do and mess up so badly that you couldn't fix it.
Really?
So if you were trying to run a wire somewhere and you had to cut a hole in the wall and you cut the hole in the wrong place, well, you could just patch it. If something, broke, you could just, you could fix it.
So he's real forgiving about everything. So I like that part where you told the girls that make mistakes and you'll learn from them, and it's all part, because that's a whole new theory right now in women's books. That they're pushing that idea about women need to stop being so coy and move forward and make mistakes and have failures, and so what? You'll learn from it. You'll do better. I've been hearing this a lot.
So how different is the Maker Faire from a Grange fair?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that. This is sounding a lot like it's 4-H.
Yeah, it's funny because, again, where I grew up is super rural in the northwest corner of New Jersey, and what is now the New Jersey State Fair was probably for most of my life called the New Jersey Farm and Horse Show. That's what I remember it as, and that's really what it sort of started out with. I think in my experience, the Maker Fairs do tend to lean a little bit more towards technology. Although Mark and some other people on the committee, whenever I kind of start looking at the makers we're having and thinking, oh, maybe they don't fit, he's kind of quick to remind me that there's a lot of different things that fall under the discipline of making. But I think you look at just historically, farmers are a classic example of people that would have limited resources, maybe be a little bit more isolated, and not just and maybe not even have the funds to just say, hey, I'm going to just throw money at the problem.
That's not their attitude. Anyhow,
right.
They're all hands-on people.
Right,
hands-on.
Yeah, hands-on, just figure it out, come up with some, again, that Yankee ingenuity expression, come up with some clever solution to the problem. And I think that's one of the things that the Maker Faire is celebrating now. We live in such a culture of consumerism, and just everything that we have or we use is something that we buy. The idea that you could just look around and everything in the world, I'm not sure who said this. I think maybe it was Steve Jobs. But, when you look around and you realize that everything that you're using was built by somebody, it was invented by somebody just like you. A lot of things people, I think, they're afraid to experiment or break things, right? Because they just think, I don't know, that it came from some magic factory, but it's just people. People built all this stuff, or people designed it. There's nothing that is so incredibly beyond our capability or a normal person's capability that you can't figure it out if you just take the time to poke around at it, right? So you and I will be running the studio here, and we're going to
So I have lots and lots of friends that are craftsmen. So I didn't grow up exactly in the life where people just, order it on Amazon Prime or whatever.
Yeah.
So I understand this very well, but I'm looking forward. Now, what day is this? Did we say what day it is?
Yeah, sure. It's April 21st, and it's from 10 to 4. rain or shine.
This
so-
all happened, and I hear it's inside and outside.
Yes. So the library is undergoing a renovation, so I'm not sure how much exactly space we're going to have inside now, but we have a tent outside.
But you know why they're having the renovation? Because they're trying to make the makers area more important.
Well, yeah, they actually, so I believe we were the first library,
Really?
that was the first library in the state that actually had a maker space. And there's, we could talk, sort of the relevancy of libraries. I think
Yeah,
that a lot.
that's an
That's a
interesting
really
topic.
important
Yeah.
part to this.
So, but libraries, I don't want to say they were ghost towns, but
Just for a while.
yeah, because this maker movement kind of came along at just the right time to sort of rejuvenate. At first, people could realize I could go to books and there's all this useful information that maybe not all of it is online, but 3D printing and sewing classes, and the girls and I did some soldering classes over at the maker space, and all that stuff
Ooh,
has
I'd
brought
like to do
people.
that.
Yeah, all that stuff
never
has
done
brought
that.
people back into libraries, and
So why is it tie in with the library?
well, I think it's just the libraries are a community hub. I think it's natural that, it's almost like
Exactly.
sort of the libraries are almost the new town square in a way, or the town commons. And so, the library has this space, and it's just a community gathering place.
And exactly what Michael's saying is there was some talk there for a few years that, books are going online. What's going to happen to libraries? Well, actually, libraries came back in strong because they have the books online. They have audio.
The technology in the libraries is very strong.
It really came back stronger than I remember for a few years thinking, we're going to lose this library. And they
Yeah.
came back stronger.
They
Now
actually-
they're going to have makers areas.
Yeah, they actually pulled stacks to put the maker space in, and I know at the time it was kind of a contra, like, wait a minute, a library that's getting rid of
Our
books to
library
bring
in
this in.
Easton's doing this,
Yeah, and actually, Megan has been volunteering at the space there. I've been doing a
What
little
is
bit
it?
of work there. So
Megan needs a clone. She's doing a lot of things, boy.
we're excited to help out with the maker space there. I
They-
think that's it's great, and you could see again at small town like Easton where there aren't a lot of community gathering spaces. We've
Well,
got
it is our community center,
yeah, we've
really.
got the
sort of.
ECC, the community center, and the library are two great places. So to have that maker space, and again to have a place where kids and adults can come in and learn different things and share some of the experiences and things that of
Now, when
things that they've
people
built.
go to the Westport Library, to the makers area, I have a friend who goes every Friday. I don't know why Friday. Is it only open on Friday?
Oh no,
or
it's
she-
open all the time.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's when she's.
So
I think-
what is that? What do they have at the makers?
She uses the 3D duplicator there.
Yeah, so I don't know all the being in Easton. I don't know all the plans for the new space, but I do believe that they're going to shoot for having a 24-hour maker space, and they have
In
3D
Easton?
printers. No, in the Westport one.
Oh, yes.
The Easton one right now, they're still building out, and they're going to have some more space.
All right, so why? All right, so there's a maker space in the library. What does that mean? What is it?
Okay, so there are a lot of tools there. For starters, there's a staff there and a lot of and a lot of tools, and then the staff can teach you how to use the tools. So if you're interested in 3D printing, they have 3D printers, multiple ones you can use there that use different techniques from like FDM or SLA, which are different 3D printing types. But there are people there to show you, to teach you how to use the CAD software to create models. There is a machine there to print books. There's actually, we have an interesting exhibit going on now that's being put together. It's a robot that's a glass filled with plasma. Your sons would love seeing that. So they're working on putting that exhibit together. But there are 3D printing pens. There is a CNC machine, which is like a computer controlled router, sort of like with that can take pieces out of wood or plastic or metal. So if you have a vision, I would say, you want to create something, you have an idea for something you want to make for yourself. There have been people that have gone there and had products, and they've done prototypes there. So they have just a bunch of different fabrication machines there and staff there to help you learn how to use it. So it's really, I would say it's almost like an idea fulfillment zone.
So
or
a creation laboratory.
Right, but where are they getting these people that know? These people coming from industry? These are librarians that have been
Some
trained in
and
this?
volunteers, and there's
Oh, wow.
there's a rotation. They usually have a maker in residence also who might I think last year it was a sculptor who was creating a giant dragon sculpture that made its premiere at the Maker Faire. I'm not sure who the maker residence is this year, but it's just people who have these skills. And they want to share them. So actually, Mark Matthias, as an example, he somewhere in his life picked up the career of like making belts, like making the leather and doing the rivets and everything else. And so
Right.
he'll do a class there on belt making for example.
So the maker
Wonderful.
encompasses technology, arts, crafts, many spheres of creative people, many creatives.
So you don't have to go to the School of the American Craftsman like my son did for $70,000 a year to blow glass.
Well, so
You still do, really, if you're going to specialize in something, but
Well, yeah, exactly. I was going to say that. I think there's a difference between if you have some hobby or some small one-off thing you want to do, and so for me, I'm a software developer by trade, but I like working with my hands. So some things that I may do in the maker space or at home, because I have 3D printers and CNC things at home, that's not necessarily as much as maybe I would like to make it my complete lifestyle. I have a whole other career or other careers that I do. So the maker space, though, and it is that for some people. Like I said, some people use it to bootstrap or start a business to make prototypes and things, but it's also just I think a way, like you were saying, like a creativity factory to just go in. You have some idea, you want to bring it to life. Maybe
and
it's just
somebody works alongside and helps you.
well,
you
maybe
just-
not shoulder to shoulder. They'll get you started because part of it
That's
is
great.
here's enough resources for you to kind of figure it out, because half the joy in actually making something right is having those mistakes along the way, that you come out of it knowing something you didn't know before, so that when you think of that next idea or want to start that next project, now you have some skills that you can, draw on and build on. So it's not like the computer on Star Trek where you just say, make me this and it happens. You still have to learn, and you have to build it and do it.
My friend that uses it, she's, my age. I mean, I love that idea that it's people.
So
from
what makes
young
it
to
what makes it all
elderly.
possible? Why is it a maker? Why is this the time for maker spaces, makers,
That's an
and all
interesting
that?
question.
Yeah. So there's. My answer is going to, again, probably lean towards the technology answer,
Okay.
because I would have, if we were talking candles or stained glass windows or something, there's nothing unique here. But I think, again, I feel that there is something that leans toward technology. So Mark Andreessen, who is the guy who is the one of the co-creators, the original Netscape browser, and then the Netscape browser is gone now, but he was instrumental in really the early birth of the web. I mean, the web that Tim Berners-Lee created was nothing without a browser for it. But anyway, he said, and now it's probably about 10 or 15 years ago, that software is eating the world. And when I read that, I was like, what the heck does that mean? I was always growing up frustrated. I wanted to learn more about electronics and like hardware. And for some reason, building circuits and stuff, I could just really never get the kind of skills there that I wanted. But I was really good at writing computer programs. And so I went and I got this, computer science degree. And what software is eating the world actually means, or came to mean, is that we got into the world of programmable hardware. So devices like Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, these were things where you could control physical objects. It might be as simple as blinking a light. It might be more complicated, like turning on a coffee maker or something. Whereas in the past, you could only do stuff like that if you built a complicated circuit. These general purpose little computers came out. They were cheap, like $30 or even less now like $5 or even cheaper. And you didn't have to know a lot about electronics. You just knew how to write programs. That opened up a whole world of people being able to create devices, to create wearable electronics, like lights and things that reacted with how a person moved. The 3D printing space definitely revolves a lot around these little devices. The CNC machines, a lot of the maker type machines, if you rip them apart and you get inside of them, you'll find simple motors and one of these little simple boards. So it became about software. So it opened up. It made the physical world controllable via the electronic world. I think that's the revolution that happened, and that was really the inception for the Maker Faire. If you open up Make Magazine, probably 90% of the projects involve one of these little microcontrollers or small computers. And there are lots of reasons why. Again, the Linux operating system is just this confluence of events of cheap, easy-to-use programmable hardware that I think really drove the technology side of the Maker Faire. And then we just scooped up along for the ride people who were doing old, quote unquote, maybe more traditional craft projects, all of a sudden, if they were doing art, they could incorporate some kind of interactive or electronic, sort of angle into that. And it's just.
And you might end up with a quilted webcam.
Yeah, sure. Well,
I don't know how these things are going to blend, but I like all these ideas.
It's just, again, and it's very approachable. I mean, that's it's not price prohibitive. It's not, skills prohibitive. It's just gotten very easy, and it's getting easier. Languages like Scratch from MIT, where kids can drag and drop little bits of programming logic and sort of put it. So it's like Legos, but it's Legos for computer programs. So,
well, it's engineering and industrial equipment in the hands of anybody who wants to use it.
Yeah.
So that's what, and the libraries are really keying into this. That's making
it's quite a revolution. It's quite a revolution.
Well, you knew everything was going to change when the century changed. They told us that.
All right, so let's we got to wrap it up. So let's talk about this is going to take place at Westport
at the library on April 21st, 10 to 4.
Now, where are you going to put your car when you have 14, 12,000
Well, we have parking.
people?
So I should give the website. It's westportmakerfaire.com, and we'll have a map, and there will be parking and shuttle buses, because this year it's not just going to be in front of the library. It's going to be a town hall and a few other locations. So people will need to move around, and there will be a map, because, like I said, it just keeps growing. So, and there will be food trucks and other things there to keep you occupied when you're too tired to look at new cool things.
You're going to do all this in 6 hours, really?
Yeah,
So it's the greatest show and tell on earth.
I can't wait.
And thank you very much.
Thanks,
Michael OGrinz.
OGrinz.
Perfect.
And family.
And family.
We'll talk with them another night.